Hello and welcome. We're here again on another episode of the Bravo Zulu live streaming series. Oh, we have people pouring in here to watch this live. This is great. As you know, each of these live stream series, we're live on YouTube, Facebook, wherever you'd like to watch the show. Today, we've got a fantastic guest, someone I've been really looking forward to bringing on here and having a chat with all your questions. Most importantly, you can join the conversation. So there should be a chat box on the stream you're watching, or leave a reply. And what you can do, those comments come up right in front of us here. So you're most welcome to join in the conversation. Ask your questions. Feel free to preload up your questions. We'll save them. I'll drop them into the conversation at the right point in time. And if you want to ask one just on something we're talking about, but I'll try and get to answers to all the questions or put them all to our guest today. So this podcast can be listened to back on YouTube, Facebook, on our podcasts as well. So on Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you want to listen to this. Our special guest today is none other than Robert Koester of the Lost Persons Behavior Study. And Robert has been extremely good to come on the show and talk to us all about what lost person behavior, what the research and studies, how they work, about his book, about the data source or data set, his database, his new find software. We've loads and loads to talk about. And one of the big topics we want to get to is how you can produce data for Robert's study for lost person behavior, the International Search and Rescue Database out of D4H. So we will cover that at the end. Now, people are starting to show off which teams they're from here. We're getting people in. We've got USA, Canada, British Columbia, Carlisle, UK, Seattle, Jasper, Alberta, Boise, Idaho, Virginia, USA. They're all here. Okay, excellent. Let me get my guest in here. So I would like you to give a welcome to Robert. Robert, how are you?
I'm just fine, and how are you?
I'm great, thank you. You've drawn a crowd. There's a great crowd watching. I think we're going to get lots of questions on here.
Excellent. Love questions.
So, if I always say to people watching this, remember that our audience aren't all search and rescue, or they aren't all from the industry that the guest is from. We were talking earlier today about how, you know, a lot of your users beyond academia, it's mainly sheriff's departments, so police, for missing people and for search and rescue in the wilderness. Explain to everybody else what lost person behavior is.
Lost person behavior is really just trying to figure out where the missing person. Not everybody who is missing is lost, but just about everybody who's lost is missing. We hope somebody cares about them to report them missing. And it's just using clusters of behavior patterns to predict where we think this person is. Now, it's all a game of probability. We don't know where this person is.
It's fascinating. Yeah. And your study, you've collected enough data, and so we know it is the International Search and Rescue Database. I think that's the right title for this. You've collected enough data in this that you can generate models and probability of where somebody goes based on their profile.
Correct. It's a starting place. When you know nothing else about the individual, you can hopefully drop them into a category. Are we talking about a missing hiker? Are we talking about a missing hunter? Are we talking about somebody on a snowmobile? Are we talking about somebody who has dementia or Alzheimer's? Or maybe somebody who has autism? Or maybe we're talking about a 4-year-old child. Yeah. All of those folks are going to behave differently. Then they're all in different environments. So you're going to behave differently in the desert than you're going to in a thickly vegetated forest, and kind of differently if you're in polar ice caps. Then you're also going to behave differently if it's mountainous or non-mountainous. And finally, you're going to behave differently if you're lost in a city, and hopefully you're not a lost hiker in the city. At least it's easy to get unlost. But we certainly see dementia cases and lost kids in urban environments. So all those things are going to impact the missing person differently.
And can you give an example? I love telling people the example of like, well, isn't there some large difference between a child of a certain age will hide and a child of a certain age will trail run? Is that there's some change point or
kids 1 to 3 don't even realize they're lost.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have any spatial capabilities, so they have spent their entire life not knowing where they are. So if you never know where you are, you can't get lost. To them, the problem is, where did my caregiver go?
Mm-hmm.
It's the caregiver who is lost from their perspective. So they tend to hide. They tend to have just random behaviors. I like to say, if you can predict the path of a butterfly, you can figure out where that missing 1-year-old is.
That's a good one. And so the advice, they'll use the database or the what would you call are they models? Are they sheets of it's a guide per, what would be the best way of describing category?
What I'd like to say, what the database allows me to generate and searchers then to use is spatial models.
Yeah.
And there's several different spatial models, and each model has its own strengths and weakness.
And so in this scenario, a search and rescue team or the sheriff's department would be able to say, well, we know it's this age child. This is how they're going to be thinking. So we'll shorten our search area versus, I don't know what, at a certain age, the child starts to run when they discover they're lost. Is that right?
I mean, it's not too surprising that for a 1 to 3 year old, the distances traveled are a little bit smaller. Some people, by the same token, may even go, oh my gosh, I didn't know a 3-year-old could get that far. So the outer ring may tell them, hey, you might need to look a little bit further out than what your own internal biases are. You know, if you have no data, all you have is instinct to go on. If you have data, you can see what at least hopefully hundreds of similar people in a similar circumstance have done.
Yeah, and I love that concept of or maybe you could talk us through it, or maybe some graphics around of how people then start using range rings to determine what sector or likelihood or direction, everything around where that person might be.
Yeah, as we've kind of discussed, that there's several different models for spatial models. Let's bring them up. So displacement model is the most common model, which is simply range rings. So if we were doing our example of a child, say, and now you can't see me frantically flipping through the book because I don't have any of these numbers memorized.
Well, while you are, I'm going to remind everyone. While you're doing that, I'm going to remind everyone you can ask Robert questions here live in the comments. So if you've got a question, warning, this is going to get technical because I'm really into this, and Robert is the most into this person in the world. So I think we're going to get into some technical questions. If people want to join in here in the comments, do ask.
There we go. So if we were using our example of a 1 to 3 year old, and we look at that displacement model, there's different rings. The smallest ring is at 25 percentile, and
we've lost your models there. If you did have them.
Oh, it's back on my screen. Is it back on yours?
There we go. Yep, we got it.
You got it?
Yep, we're up.
Okay. So 25% of 1 to 3 year olds are found within 200 meters. And 50% are found within 300 meters. And 75% are found within 600 meters. And now you might be thinking, you're about to hear me say 95% are found in a kilometer. No, 95% go all the way out to 4.5 kilometers. So while you might find 75% of these 1 to 3 year olds in 600 meters, if you want to get that last 20%, you got to go all the way out to 4.5 miles. So that's the displacement model, or the ring model.
Yeah.
The dispersion model is, given a direction of travel, how well does that direction of travel actually predict where they're going to be found? The elevation model,
and just so that's how far they wander off a direction. So what factors change that for people? So I assume the dispersion is a certain profile of person or category of person can walk a straight line or has purpose about their direction versus somebody who doesn't. Is that what that is?
Pretty much. Although one of the more peculiar findings is with dementia subjects, we find they have a very tight dispersion angle. So if you do have a direction of travel from somebody who has dementia, which usually you don't, in all honesty, it's not like you can really trust them if they say where they're going. But sometimes you have video sightings or CCTV sightings of where they were headed as they left the facility. That's actually a pretty good predictor of where they're going to be found. So for dementia, we have a little saying of, they go until they get stuck.
Yeah.
Despondence is also another one where the dispersion angle is a really good predictor of often where they're going to find up. Because if you kind of think about a despondent, usually they're not lost. They know where they're going and they go there.
Yeah. And by my memory, drawn sort of, you've this concept of magnets and barriers of what people are aversion from and drawn to, or as such of find locations that you might find near water, near a building. There's different models of where they may be attracted to.
On the slide, it just says find location because I didn't have a fancy graphic for it. But it pretty much suggests, if you look at something, a concept known as probability density, linear features are where most lost people are found. So examples of linear features, and some of these hopefully shouldn't be too surprising. A lot of people are found on roads. A lot of people are found on trails. A lot of people are found on hydrological features, streams, rivers, creeks, whatever you happen to call it in your locality. And other linear features might be fence lines, railroads, pipelines, pipeline cuts through the terrain. That tends to gather people up. Sometimes people say, are people attracted to these? It's like, I don't know if they're attracted to them per se, but that's where they wind up. And if you're lost and you stumble out on a trail, you're far more likely to start following the trail than walk across it. However, there's exceptions to every rule. So
yeah, very good. Elevation.
So,
I bet I could. Sorry, go ahead.
So elevation is just, what is the probability they're going to go uphill? What is the probability they're going to go downhill? And
let me guess. Teenagers don't go uphill. Let me guess.
Well, it used to be most people went downhill, but a newer trend is if somebody has a cell phone, they get themselves lost, and they don't have a signal, they're more likely to go uphill.
Yeah.
Some people have been taught that, hey, if you get lost, go to the top of the hill and then you can get a wonderful view of everything around and then decide where to go. Then you get to the top of the mountain and it gets foggy or cloudy on you.
We've got a little sharing box covering the bottom center model. I don't know if you can press hide.
Oh, that one says, I think I could hide that.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Right. Track offset.
It says track offset. So this one is particularly valuable in dementia and in some of our younger kids, where the question is, if you're not found on a road or trail or linear feature, then how far away from that feature are you typically found? And say for dementia folks, 50% of folks with dementia, when they're not found on a road or trail, are only 15 meters. And for our non-metric people, meters and yards are the same thing, as well as SAR teams measure things. So that means if you just look 15 meters or yards on either side of whatever you're searching, you stand a 50% chance of finding the subject.
Yeah.
And watershed is one of the more technical ones. My software handles it. It's not something you would commonly plot on a map without GIS.
And watershed, how does that affect the person's
behavior?
The
idea, I mean, a watershed is technically where water will flow into a common source like a river. The way it impacts lost person behavior is lost subjects are less likely to switch from one watershed to the next. To go from one watershed to the next means you have to go up and over the mountain. So 50% of lost folks are found in the same watershed.
Oh, that's fascinating. And I assume people feel that if they follow a river as well, it's going somewhere, or there's some element.
Yeah, it's got to go someplace. For the most part. There's always exceptions. There's some parts of the country or the planet where it might bring you to the Arctic Ocean, which is probably a place you don't want to be, and other places it goes out into a dry wash or a desert, another place you probably don't want to be. But in other places, following water will get you out of trouble. In some places, it might bring you to a really nice swamp.
So can you give us a little bit of backstory? I know you have a couple of slides here, and I've probably jumped you right into the middle of them at an awkward point. Are you able to sort of give us a feel of the study, of the research,
sure,
and sort of how people contribute?
Yep. Well, let's just kind of start with... Oh, my slides aren't switching quickly. It's a bandwidth problem on my end. So let me...
Well, you're bringing them up. We love questions coming in here. So if you've used Robert's book before, which we have a link to in the description section, it is The Lost Person Behavior, a search and rescue guide on where to look. And I believe you can purchase it down below. There is a link in the description box. I hope that's the right link that you prefer people to purchase from. So you can, you guys it's a really fascinating reference manual for your response team.
Let's try this.
Yeah, go for it. Yep, looking good.
Okay, so I started collecting data in 2002 when I had a grant from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. What they have to do with lost person behavior, I'm still not sure to this day. But there was a 6-month grant, so it was kind of like collect as much data as I possibly could in 6 months. So it also meant my format was I would collect data in any format people had to give it to me. And then it took me another 2 years to kind of clean up all that data and make sense of it all. And in the end, I collected data from 43 different sources and had 50,000 incidents collected. From that, I went ahead and wrote the book, Lost Person Behavior. So that is the data that the book is currently showing. Or if you have a copy or the version of the Lost Person Behavior app, that's also the same data. So the app and the book match. In 2013, I got some additional funding, and they require for me to say this whole thing, from the Department of Homeland Security Science and Technology Directorate. And so I was able to collect an additional 100,000 new cases. And then in 2014, I got...
At this point, was it international as well? I mean, was this from mainly North America or US, or
it was...
where did it...
Even back in 2002 to 2007, it was an international database. Because even in that initial data run, I had data from, well, most of it was from North America. Although my second largest source of data was actually New Zealand. And then I had a good amount of data coming in from Australia, and a good amount of data coming in from the UK and Ireland. And then like a little bit from Switzerland. Excellent. And with the second round of database, I added Poland and Iceland and Spain. And now I have just started in 2021, and I'm still doing it right now, a third round of data collection.
And what changes in the third round? Do you update fields? Are you looking for this? Is it just more data, as in the time period that's passed, or is there something different about it?
There's more data and there's new subject categories.
Okay.
So previously I had 43 subject categories. For the second round of data collection, I added 2 or 3 more. And now I'm probably getting ready to add, I'm not sure I have all the data because I have to have enough data to make a new subject category.
Yeah.
But I'm probably going to have like a dozen new subject categories.
Can you give some examples of what they are? Like what's new? What can people expect?
Some of the new subject categories I have on a slide. So here's some of the upcoming additions. Right now, the data is just broken into temperate and dry domains. Looks like I'll be getting enough data from Iceland and Alaska and Canada to be able to add the polar domain. There's a rather interesting observation that you get very different behaviors, whether there is snow on the ground or if you're trying to just get through tundra. Lot more mobility if snow is actually on the ground. I'm breaking out, instead of just maybe temperate, I can break out temperate into some of the ecoregion divisions and give even more specific data. I better define mountains. I discuss probabilistic thinking, which is just a fancy way of saying I don't really know, but I'll sound smart by using the word probability. So some of the new subject categories, there's base jumpers, then there'll be a subcategory of base jumpers wearing what I call squirrel suits.
And what? Yeah. So how are base jumpers getting that lost on the walk in? I assume.
They crash.
And
Or
how do you model that? It's just distance from the cliff?
distance from the cliff, total vertical drop.
Okay.
The old class, dispersion angle will be important. The distance from the launch site will be important. Total elevation change from the launch site, which is usually going to be lower. But it's like how much, is it in the first third of the flight, or the second third of the flight, or the last third of the flight?
I know. I see that fugitive category as well, and I think that'll have huge interest from law enforcement. I think.
Yeah, I'm certainly
my experience is very little in that.
Yeah, certainly collecting some fugitive data. Whether I just restrict it to law enforcement or put it in the book, I haven't decided yet. Vision quest is a category where people get a vision from a higher source to go out and do something. Like, hey, I've never climbed a mountain in my life, but I feel like I should climb a mountain. Or I feel like I should run off into the woods naked and see how long I can survive. So it's actually usually, in all honesty, a mixture of being despondent, having some mental illness, and whatever activity they're actually doing. And then certainly we're seeing, from some of our veterans or people who just have had auto accidents, brain trauma to a very specific part of their brain. So it may not be appropriate to say they have an intellectual disability, but that they have received a trauma to their brain, and that affects their behavior. And then beacons is all of our PLBs, personal locator beacons, ELTs, emergency locator transmitters for airplanes that have crashed. Then we also have our commercial devices such as InReach or spot devices would all be examples of beacons. And certainly cell phone forensics is becoming more important. So when you are given some results from cell phone forensics, how well do those cell phone forensics actually predict where the person is? Because all the forensics tell you was the last time the phone had contact with a tower.
Yes.
It doesn't necessarily tell you where the subject is. Subjects can move out of cell phone coverage, or phones can die. So I actually have statistics on that now.
There's a question in here kind of related to that from Andrew Walwork, which is there enough data for social media photo seekers where they go off in seeking a perfect photo for Instagram or other?
No, there's not enough data. So that is my universal restraint. If nobody's collecting data on a question, then I can't draw any conclusions.
Yes.
And a lot of times new categories and new questions often have to be gleaned from the comments section, which usually means somebody has to read tens of thousands of comments to pull these things out. Like just a question I was working on the other day was a search for a 4-year-old who ran off following a dog. So, the question then comes up, when children are lost following dogs, do they behave differently than those who aren't following or have dogs with them? I have a nice fancy hypothesis that I could give you a great line of reasoning of what I think and why I think it. But in all honesty, I could be completely wrong, and I won't know until I crunch the numbers and see what the numbers say versus what I think.
There's another question in here. Gaspar, I hope I've said that, attempted to say that right. It looks like you're from Rome in Italy, saying after their experience in the Concordia ship, which I believe is the cruise ship that capsized off Italy, they could write a new category of missing persons. And that would lead me to the question: would you ever think about centralizing some data on how bodies behave in water of different salinities and temperatures? It's something that we can never. So my background for people who aren't familiar is in the Coast Guard here in Ireland, and we're always struggling for good data on that. There doesn't ever seem to be an international source.
Yeah, I have pretty much stuck to the land environment because I initially had this belief that the Coast Guard knew what it was doing, and I'd let them collect all data on that because I thought the land was the untouched
Yeah.
source
Well,
of.
it's lakes, rivers, it's all that thing. I'd love a central point where water salinity. I mean, there's a whole set of factors obviously to it.
Yes.
Water salinity and water temperature. And I think that's where, with the Concordia ship comment there, it's like, what is the average time that a body may resurface from gas?
Yeah, that is a very
forming
difficult question. I am actually just listening in on a seminar tomorrow called Bodies in the Water.
Ah, there we go.
And I'd give the link, but I already heard like that the seminar is full, even for virtual attendees.
Yeah, and it's a fascinating area.
There's actually a database out there being kept for bodies in the water, attempting to address some of those issues.
I see we've just had David Away just say here, Lorna Dennison is doing work on a bodies missing in waters database for the UK police. She's a Pulsar by the look of it in the UK.
Yeah. And really that's who's giving the seminar tomorrow.
Look at that. It all comes around.
I don't know if it's going to be recorded or not. Then obviously people could see it afterwards.
See, we've a comment in here from Sandra. Sandra, fantastic to hear from you. It's been a very, very long time. I hope you're keeping well. Robert was actually telling me just before this, one of the biggest live streams he had done was the BC Adventure Smart one, and they're looking forward to welcoming you back again on the 6th of July, by the look of it. So yet another oversubscribed session. Hikers and mountain bikers.
Yep.
Where were we on your slides?
Where were we on the list?
A couple of others.
I can bring it back up again. We had kind of talked about fugitives, so that would be of interest to law enforcement. And then wide area disaster. I got a little bit of data from wildland fires, where you find folks who have been in a wildland fire that have gone missing. Mm-hmm. And I'm also working on some flood data. And from our U.S. Coast Guard, I haven't determined if I'm going to be able to get this data. I'm still working on it. They have a good amount of data on bridge jumpers who then go into the water. And then there's a separate database on scuba divers who go missing. I also have new data on missing aircraft as well. There's also, all of those are what I call kind of what you were doing based things. I also have a new category of subject categories called scenario categories. So it doesn't so much matter what you were doing, but why you went missing. So for folks who have a medical event, so you could be a hiker or a hunter and you have a diabetic crisis, then you would fall in the medical category. Evading is sometimes small kids, autism, mental illness. If you have an active evader, here's their set of statistics. If somebody has received a trauma, and that's why they're actually missing, they fell off a cliff, or your mountain climbers have a fall, then they would fall into the trauma category, and I have like 6 different scenario categories. So that will be a new way that the data will be presented. So that is something I am working on. And then I'm working on new models. So the point model is just a new model that says, what's the chance of finding the subject within 100 meters of where they were last seen? Or what's the chance of finding the subject within 100 meters of their destination? Which should tell searchers that those are 2 very important places to look, but sometimes people forget for various reasons. And then there's the revised PLS model. So I got enough data from people telling me, you have the initial planning point, but then you have some really great clue or some really great sighting where, you have video footage and you have it's time stamped and you absolutely know the subject was here after they were last seen. So that's a revised PLS. And as you might expect, that reduces those range rings. So that's a new model coming out.
Okay.
So those are the new things I'm working on. Occasionally, if I get enough data and something else pops out of the data, then I can report on it.
So let's talk about that. Your critical piece is people sending you data. That's what we need.
Without data, I can't do anything other than just make things up off the top of my head.
So what's the most basic way people can do this? How do they get involved, and how does their team or department contribute to you?
Well, there's several different ways you can contribute data. If you have your own database up and running, you certainly just email me the data. And if you need letters and memorandums of understandings or FOIAs or whatever legal hoops have to be hooped through, I'm happy to go through that. It's easiest for me at this point, especially since I have no funding. I really don't want a bunch of paper forms and do the manual data entry myself. I have done that in the past. I do have a 14-year-old that I can make do that kind of stuff. Yeah. For those
Don't worry, it's for the common good. Keep going. It's for the common good.
Common good. I'll get you an ice cream bar. I'd much rather have 12,000 electronic incidents come in and then spend my time cleaning the data and working through that. And of course, D4H does have a lost person behavior model that was built to the silver standard. So when people have
I get an email every now and again from Robert saying, "Can we upgrade our model, please, to the?" I think it's platinum. Would be the ideal level.
Few more questions there. Of course, everything's a balance between if you ask too many questions, nobody wants to fill it out. Because my observation is nobody went into search and rescue because they wanted to fill out a form.
What I promised people on this was we talk a little bit about this because there are lots of questions, and I think one of the good outcomes of today is if you do use D4H is how to send you the data and see how much if we can get you a bit of a higher volume. We have hundreds of thousands of users that should be able to contribute. So what I was going to do here was very quickly just demonstrate this. So what I'm going to do here, let me make sure we can see our pretty faces still. There we go. So what I'm looking at here is just D4H, and people who use it will be very familiar with adding a new incident. So if you want to contribute here, what you need to do is just add a normal incident. I'm going to call it missing hiker. Okay, I set a location on the map, and obviously you can go, you can work right in off here on topographic. So we'll go down. I'm going to pick a random spot here. We won't worry too much. And of course I can put in the lat long here as well. Okay, and this is all this data is going to go forward in the export. I can put in all of my timestamps around everything that's happening. And the key tab here, I'll just pull in some weather. And I'm going to jump onto the lost person tab. So the lost person tab, if you want to turn that on in your account, it's in the settings area. And this is where we open up that ISRID silver compatibility form. So now it already knows where some basic information. So I'm now starting to tell it where was the initial planning point. I'm just going to say it was here. You can see I can work all the way down through these different categories. And I know you'd love, for example, a subcategory of person too, right?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, a lot of times the category might be a missing child because you just go by their age, and the category might be child 1 to let's say child 10 years old, but then the subcategory would be, what were they actually doing? Were they hiking? Were they playing?
So you can see I'm working my way through all these questions. Mobility is how long they were, the search team reckon they were moving for. Is that right? So they think they
Correct.
reported they walked for 4 hours or 5 hours or something like
Correct.
that. Total lost time then is including their stops time, I guess. So let's say they sat for 5 hours.
Total lost time is from the time they were last seen to the time they're found.
And total search time is the effort put in by the response.
Exactly. From the time the searchers started searching,
they were good,
to the time they were found. Yeah, since it says search time.
So when I now set the find location, we'll automatically calculate the distance. And I thought we calculate an elevation change, but I think I heard you say we may not be doing that.
Yeah, it doesn't usually show up on my side of the house.
Look at that. So you can leave a little love note here to Robert in the general comments section, and it'll come through into his database. And so that's all I need to do here is I say thank you. Send Robert some nice motivation to process the data for you, and I press finish now. What people are missing here, and this is the key thing, and maybe we're not clear about it, is we don't automatically submit it for you. You're creating a compatible silver report. And so come the end of the year, what you need to do is you go up here to all of your incidents. You'd pick the date range. So if we're going to report on everything last year, so I'd say from January 1st, 2021 to December 31st. And on the right hand side here, this is where it is. This export, this is all of your data. The lost behavior export here is your ISRID data set. So it hides all of your confidential fields and data, and all it's sending through are those the key information that you need. So I think is that enough for me to say, or
nope. Just one more step. They will get a copy of their spreadsheet, and it will download to their system. They actually then have to email me the spreadsheet.
Yes, key. Yeah, absolutely. I'll try and bring up what this looks like here for people to have a look. So let me open the spreadsheet. Where are we? No, I'm not able to share the spreadsheet, I'm afraid. So you have to. It's a lovely spreadsheet, and it's got all of the columns in it across the data we just captured. So county, city, mission number, incident date, incident type, categories, number of subjects, involvement of the subject, ages, genders, search time, lost time, distance traveled from the IPP, direction, find features, everything you've just seen. And you're right, elevation change says coming soon.
Yeah, the nice thing is, if it's like North America, with the IPP coordinate and the find location, I can use tools to figure out the delta in the elevations. Once I have coordinates, I can figure out those elevations myself, and then calculate.
What is the email address that you want this data sent to?
It's Robert.
Yep.
At DBS, that's Delta Bravo Sierra, then a hyphen, and then SAR.com.
So I'm going to put that up on screen here. So if you want to send in, we'll update some stuff at the end. I do believe we've a guide, and if we need to update our knowledge base, we do have a whole page on this. If you search D4H ISRID, you should get our knowledge base. I hope that email or certain the way to submit it is listed. But we massively encourage everyone, if you've got incident data about lost people, get it into Robert's study, contribute towards the book, and then go purchase the book to fund the study. And let's make sure that we're supporting this kind of stuff. It's superbly useful information.
Yeah, one of the latest little updates I did was trying to make a better model for survivability and looking at factors that affect survivability. And you can see several of those factors, such as survival training, clothing, were listed there in the silver standard.
Yeah.
But a lot of people didn't submit the data to me. So my data management students were like, boy, it would have been nice to have more data with those fields.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's comments coming in here. We have the fields, but we need people to enter the data. It's great to see the output, to give people the incentive to enter their data. Maybe let platinum be a toggle option up from silver. But yeah, just so it doesn't get more complicated. I think we'd let that be a team setting of some point. Oh, the questions are flowing in now. Robert, I hope you've nothing on for the afternoon. Discussion: if people see too many fields, they'll not enter any data. They'll enter none rather than some. They're more likely to fill out silver. I don't know what you think on that, but I guess it's an organization standard or whatever they want to.
I mean, that's the whole reason I developed actually 4 different levels, because I knew there was a balance between lots of information, but less likely to fill out a form, a little bit of information, but more likely to fill out a form, and then just let users decide what they're motivated to do.
And if people, because we need to comment as well, there's PDF forms people can submit too. Is that right?
There are. If they email me, I'm happy to send them PDF forms. The basic and silver standard. I mean, the basic is like a half form. The silver standard is like the front page of a form. The gold and platinum are a front and back. And then with PDFs, if people aren't familiar, you can create your own spreadsheet, and it automatically pulls it off the form to build the spreadsheet for you. So you only have to fill out the data once.
Here is a question in from Stephanie. Stephanie is actually used to work at D4H. Stephanie, it's great to see you. Stephanie's with King County Search and Rescue in Washington. What type of information do you like to receive in the comments field?
Anything you want to put in there. I mean, a better description, a thumbnail description of why the subject got lost. A short, brief thing of, how did you find them? If it's a weird search, what made it a weird search? I mean, was it a subject category you seldom see? Or a lot of times you scratch your head. In about 80-90% of the times, it's pretty easy to determine the subject category. But there's another 10% where you're scratching your head. It's like, I'm not really sure. But, if it forces me to fill out only one thing from a pull-down list, I'll I'll pull down whatever best matches, but sometimes a little bit more description can really help. And if nothing seems to fit for the subject category, I don't know if you give the option of other.
I would imagine we do. Whatever was on the silver.
Right. Of course,
option.
the problem with other, if you only say other, it's useless. It doesn't tell anybody anything.
Yeah.
Because then you're potentially combining, I don't know, hang gliders with jet planes. You know.
Yeah.
It's useless. But if you have other and you put something in the comment box, then I can really figure out what other means.
Gabe, you've asked here, DFRH doesn't limit the output of the lost behavior exports to incidents only. I'm not sure I follow that question.
Oh, I do.
Follow up. Oh, go for it.
I get to see when they download that lost person behavior. Yes. I get to see all their training missions.
No, they're sending you the wrong spreadsheet then.
No, it has the it has the incidents on it too.
Okay.
But it has everything else also.
So I suspect. I mean, they're coming from completely different locations, but I see. So it's every activity that can have lost person behavior. Yeah. So should it limit to incidents only? You can only input it against incidents. So that is, it should limit to incidents only. But the data is just going to be a date and reference.
Yeah, I mean, it's not too hard for me to clean.
Well, we'll clean that up. We just need, once these are raised.
Sort it out.
Well, I have actually, because Gabe is another one here saying the coming soon for elevation. During this live stream, I'm getting messages from our engineering team who are saying that they're going to work on that now, especially after this being highlighted in the stream. So that's going to come through. Okay, back over to Italy. Our department is a national one, and we have national database of the relief efforts we do. About 5,000 are search and rescue operations. How do we share this data with you?
Send me an email. We'll start working out all the details.
Perfect.
And pretty much my team can take just about any format data arrives in. Ultimately, I put it into a spreadsheet to clean it before it gets ingested into the actual database.
Okay, very good. What does DBS stand for?
My high school nickname was Dr. Bob.
Yeah, nice.
And the S was just free floating. It either stood for scientific or SAR.
Oh, very
I never
good.
really decided what. I think it's the first time I've actually said it before. I wouldn't say it before I got my doctorate.
And now you are Dr. Bob.
Now I am Dr. Bob.
Hope everyone in high school knows. What else do we have here? I'm going to come back to some of these, so they may be out of order from people are asking. Do you want incidents where the subject location was known? But
I will actually have a separate subject profile on cell signals and PLBs. Usually I'm just interested in, were they actually there, or how far away from the sort of reported position were they actually?
Yeah.
That helps with spatial modeling. It also kind of helps searchers to kind of know what percentage are false alarms, what percentage turn out to be true distress. Those are the types of things I'll be in the next edition of the book. Peter
comes out and says, sort the incident type to limit items to contribute. I'm guessing this is related to D4H, and what you're looking for is when you export that spreadsheet, that it would filter to just one of our tags. So you can say lost person and just export incidents that have a tag on it. It sounds a great idea, and I hope those engineers are still watching. We'll add that into the same fix.
I mean, that's actually what I did to clean them up as they came in.
Question in here from Andrew Quigley. Have you collected data on fugitives from law enforcement, and what would be useful?
Yes, and I've also collected it. Oh, look, there's one of my data entry people trying to crawl. Yes, law enforcement and some SAR teams get called to fugitive cases. I mean, some SAR teams are affiliated with law enforcement.
Okay. So
the most
you're getting
useful thing is where were they last seen? Where were they found? And then obviously the time. How long are they actually out there? And then probably the next thing that helps a lot of people is, if I have coordinates, I can actually do most of the work myself, just given those 2 coordinates. You don't even have to tell me the distance. And then I can plot it on the map and see the types of features they're actually found on. I've automated the process if I have coordinates to get the elevation as well.
Gabe has said, don't forget about your app. Tell people about your app and what they can do.
So there is an app called Lost Person Behavior that is available for both Android and Apple operating systems. It essentially contains all of the statistical information found in the book.
Yep.
So if you don't have the book with you, you can just look it up on the app. One other difference that the app has is a subject category wizard. So if of course I got my handy dandy app here like everybody else. So the subject category wizard. Woo-hoo.
Yes, lovely.
As that. So if we have a child riding their bike who has autism, and I could show all that, and then it would say I should actually use the autism profile. So it makes it a lot easier to pick the right category, and then it will go ahead. Yep, there it was. That's how it looks. Screenshots from the app, and then it will give you, the same statistics. Something you only find in the app that you don't find in the book is a tactical briefing. Yep. So if you're like getting ready to brief a team, this is what is important to know about autism subjects. Like they may not be responsive. They may run from you. Et cetera, et cetera. You can just, that's something you could read to your team as you send them out. So that's the app.
Excellent. I can see here Amy has just posted the download links for the app in the comments here, which is great. Thank you, Amy. The Google Play and Apple App Store. Bob, you charge $10, or I see €10 there for the app, and that goes towards the research and ensure that we get updated data.
Pretty much everything goes back into research.
So go buy the app. Another question in: does the app data does the app update as the data refreshes with new information?
It was built to do that, but it's so much work to update the information. I update it when I do a major update to ISRID. So the app will automatically update once I put out what I'm calling ISRID version 3.0. Matter of fact, all we have to do is switch out one little file and all the data automatically updates.
Excellent. I'm going to have to wrap this up shortly because questions are flying in here. Is there an ETA for the new edition of the book? And can we get autographed copies?
Well, this is how far I am with the new version of the book. I'm up to chapter 8.
Very good.
Of course, in the old book, chapter 8 was the subject categories, but I've added 2 new chapters. So I'm trying to push myself for maybe a book release at the ISAR convention or the ISAR.
Yep.
Rescue 2022.
October in Reykjavik, right?
Yeah, so
that's a great one. Anyone watching this who wants to go to a search and rescue conference, I think that is a fantastic event to go to see an entirely different world of search and rescue.
But there's often circumstances beyond my control. But I've collected a lot of data so far. I mean, enough if I wanted to, I could start updating all those tables, but this is one of the last things I really wanted to get done. And pretty soon, in a month or two, I'm going to stop collecting data and then focus solely on writing the rest of the chapters.
Excellent. Well, as people saw there, I think get your data in now. It's easy to do. Export whatever database you use and submit it in. We've the email address there of how to submit information. It's in the description on the video. If not, they can just Google ISRID database DBS Productions, I think, and they get the submission instructions as well.
And for most people, I probably have not seen your data since 2014.
Okay, so everything from 2014 up. So that's a lot of data.
Yes.
Excellent. Anything else I've missed, Robert, that you'd like to add or go over, or have we covered everything in detail for you?
I mean, we could probably talk all night.
I'm enjoying it. I warned everyone.
But yeah, I mean, the data not only helps me, but some of the other things that I've been working on, like is it going to be a survivability model? So I had a bunch of data scientists, master students, if you want to call them data scientists yet, look at some of the data I had. So some of the things I found out, things that really impact survivability are age, and not too surprising, the average temperature and the hottest temperature and the coldest temperature, and then the type of environment they're in, and then gender, and then their fitness, and then their ecoregion domain, and so on and so on and so on. And we were able to make, so after recognizing what the important factors are, we can then input all the temperature data, the subject data, the time data, and make a probability of survival prediction. And then we can actually compare that to actual survivability. This is actual survivability just based upon time. Yeah, just time and the subject category. So it's going to be a lot more useful now that I have a lot more data to work with. I can improve these models. And the short end of the story is people are surviving a lot longer than I think we sometimes give credit people to survive. So don't suspend your search too soon. Yeah. As I'm fond of saying, there is a difference between uncomfortable and dead.
Yeah, definitely. It takes a long time to kill someone, for sure. This has just been great. I do have to wrap it up, and there are still questions coming in, and I'm sorry if you didn't get your question answered. But you can. I'm sure Robert is delighted to take them by email as well. So please, we just ask everyone again: submit your data. Let's get it in. Let's make sure this third edition is really good. It's for the benefit of everyone. So, Robert, thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure. I don't want to write new books too often. Let's make this one great.
Excellent. Listen, thanks again. I look forward to seeing you at a conference soon.
Okay. You take it easy too.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.